Welcome to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a space where all spiritual seekers are honored and celebrated. This podcast was born from the journeys of your hosts, who have each faced her own dark night of the soul, but they've emerged with an unshakable belief in divine connection, cosmic inspiration, and her true life's calling. Join us on a journey of personal growth, transformation, and magical self-discovery. Your first co-host is Chloe Brown, a gifted intuitive empath and shadow work life coach. Your second co-host is Chione Star, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. The Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast starts now. Hello, this is Chione, and we are happy to welcome you to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast. Today, very excited to introduce our guest, Harmony Lovejoy. She is an Akashic Records psychic reader, angelic quantum energy healer, light code DNA activator, angelic Reiki, and shamanic energy practitioner. And I can personally speak to her beautiful energy and to all of the gifts that she brings to the table. I have known Harmony over the last 6 months to a year, I believe, and have just always been impressed with just her beautiful inner light.
Thank you.
I also have with me Chloe, my co-host mermaid.
Hello. So glad you're here.
So, with that, the first thing that we typically ask, and we're very excited to hear about your spiritual journey, is what brought you here?
I guess I talk about my mother. She used to know when people were going to pass away, so she had the gift as well. She didn't really use it, nor did she like it, but she did ask it to go away, and it did. So we do have free will here. I would have prophetic dreams. The first one I remember, I was in elementary school. I was probably about 6 or 7. And I remember I was standing in line at school and I thought to myself, I dreamt this happening last night. Like the whole conversation and everything. And that continued on throughout my lifetime. And I would know things like when the phone was going to ring and just random little things. My mom would know, she would get premonitions about my brother getting hurt or things of that nature. And my dad had it too. He knew different things about different houses. Like when he went to get an apartment, he knew that there was spirits in there because the painting would fall off the wall repeatedly. And he said that to the person who he was going to rent from. And they're like, oh. So it does come down. My daughter, she sees spirits, she can see ghosts, and she also knows when somebody's going to die. She says she smells it. So it kind of runs in our family. My sister has that too. She can sense spirits and different things like that.
So I'm curious as to why your mom didn't want this ability in her life.
I think she didn't know what to do with it. Like, why are you telling me these things? She was very selfish too. So she didn't really like to think about others. Kind of just what's in it for me. So it was a natural progression for her to just be like, what's the point of this when it's helping others? I guess she couldn't grasp that concept.
So she wasn't thinking outside of the fact that, hey, this is information coming in from source, however we want to term it. And this is a message that maybe I need to share for the good of others.
Yeah, she would do it for friends and family and things of that nature when they asked. I remember her telling me a story where one of her friends' grandmother was passing away, and my mom said, I'll let you know when you need to go visit her. And she got a dream or some sort of feeling or whatever, however she got it, and I don't remember how. And she told her, you need to go visit your grandmother. And then within 2 days, she passed away. So she would do it for friends and family and things of that nature, but I don't think she knew how to monetize it. And I also think that it was a little scary to her. Like, I dreamt of 9/11 when that happened, right before that happened. I said to my guides, I said, why are you giving me this if there's nothing I can do with it? And it did go away. So it might have been along those lines as well for her.
Society looked at it a little bit different. And especially earlier on, when using your 9/11 example, like that can feel just horrendous because there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do about it. And it's just heart wrenching on a whole nother level. And perhaps those two combined, I can honestly understand.
Yeah, she never expressed it that way, but she never expressed it the other way either. So it's all speculation for me as to why she didn't want to. But I can imagine being in her shoes, the weight you must feel to know when somebody's going to pass away. Because I personally have never smelt it like my daughter does or just know like my mother, but I have been told, go visit your grandma. And then within a week, she had passed away, even though she was in the nursing home for years. So I was told, I would be told, but I actually honestly didn't put two and two together. Now looking back at it, I'm just like, how did I know it? But for them, it's a lot more severe. My daughter says that people smell differently when they're going to pass away.
What a burden to carry. That's rough. When I was little, I had those experiences and I begged it to go away because I couldn't handle the idea of knowing somebody was going to pass over. And as a child, it felt like there could be something I could do in my mentality to fix that and change that. And so it felt so agonizing to have that type of information.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. She doesn't like to go past cemeteries because she can see spirits and different entities and things. She has stories and she's a very gifted young lady. So I know one day she'll be doing this stuff for a living.
Well, she has the perfect example of how to use it for the highest good in you.
Thank you. And yeah, she does come to some expos with me and sit with me, and she's really good.
So I want to ask you, Harmony, about your upbringing. Was any of this scary to your mom potentially because of, you had mentioned that you grew up in a Christian household? And oftentimes, depending on the Christian denomination and just our own personal beliefs, a lot of folks aren't comfortable with having vision, clairvoyance, mediumship.
Well, I'll tell you, my mom and my father weren't really church-going people, but my grandmother and my grandfather who raised me, and I would be at their houses every weekend, and that family did. And I did go to church camp because my great grandpa paid for it and things of that nature. So I would say I did definitely, even though my parents weren't in the church, I definitely did grow up Christian. It didn't really faze me. I was always the more kind of rebellious type. I would always have the questions of, yeah, but this in church, yeah, but that, and this doesn't make sense to me. And it just didn't sit right. That's why I kind of walked away when I got a little older because I didn't quite understand certain concepts. I didn't think they were accurate.
Well, I think that's amazing in your story that someone who is young chose yourself to delve into the Gnostic Gospels and some of these other content in order to answer questions that you have or to even expand your own understanding. What spurred that sort of interest?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I always loved history and watching different things on History Channel or Discovery Channel or different things like that. So I feel like it was just a stirring inside of, hey, why don't you read these? Why don't you pick up that book or go there? And this was in my 30s. Now, I had always been, and my mom had always been really into one of the famous psychics that would go on the Montel Williams show, Sylvia Brown. So I read a lot of her books in my 20s and going into my 30s. And she had a lot of different types of information. So I think she stirred a lot of this thinking kind of going on within me and the stirring of needing more knowledge. And so in my 30s, that's when I dipped into the Nagamani Lovejoy, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the different things of that nature. But I started doing tarot in my 20s. So I still had that in me, and I was really good. I was very good at reading the cards. It was just like came naturally to me.
It's beautiful. As a divination tool, do you believe that if we set our intention for the highest good, that those cards will tell a story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I used to, before my dad passed away, this is in my 30s as well, I used to lay the cards out in front of him. Now, he did end up starting going back to church, so I'm not sure how he felt about it with me. I think he was on the fence about it with me because they were very religious then towards the end. I would set my cards out for him, and then I would put another row underneath, and it would match completely. And he's like, how do you do that? The cards will come out and tell you the story that needs to be told. But then I would tell him, hey, did you do what the cards asked you to do? No? Okay. Well, do that and I'll come back. I'll give you another one.
You had told me that all your life, you were really pumped to have spirit talk to you. You wanted to channel. It was something that you were super interested in developing even further because you had been born and surrounded by people with these abilities. Why was that so important to you?
We go back to the cards. When I couldn't get the meaning 100%, or I felt there was more to hear and I wasn't getting the whole entire picture, I decided that I just wanted to just know. And that's what set me on the journey to the Kundalini activation and everything. And then I could just hear more. It didn't have to be in my dream state anymore. It could be in my waking life. And as soon as I had the Kundalini activation, they were just there. And it's really helped with my card readings as well, and to help others with card readings as well, because I can sit there and tell you exactly what you're supposed to be seeing if you're not seeing something. Like if I didn't see something in the cards, I would have to wonder, there's more, but I can't get it, but I can hear them and tell you. And I'm really helping my friend John develop that, his reading abilities, his card reading abilities, because he's like, oh, I didn't see that, but now he does. And he's really getting good.
Yeah, sometimes it's just simply having someone show you a connection that you just hadn't noticed at the moment.
Yeah, it expands your consciousness and your awareness.
I do have to ask, this may be a stupid question, but it's never deterred me before.
Yeah.
So I may as well ask it. My husband always says, because I pull oracle cards for him all the time. And he says, Chione, one day I want you to pull an oracle card for me that says, dude, you're a piece of shit. Get your life together. Because his thing is, all of these are self-affirming and he doesn't feel they're realistic. Not that he necessarily, well, he may believe people are pieces of shit, but you got the idea that sometimes people do need to get themselves together. They need accountability. Maybe their finances are in disarray or whatever. So he questions whether oracle cards in particular are helpful.
It all depends on how you read them. That's where that comes in, where if you want to give positive messages, yes, absolutely, you're going to. And we all need that. But if he wants, hey, you're a piece of shit, we can give it to him. Like, Spirit can give it to him, no problem. I know with my readings all the time, I have to be the bearer of bad news. Hey, you're not doing this right. Hey, we need to work on this. But I help people with their karma. I'd be out of a job, I guess, doing that if you were doing everything correctly.
How important to you is it to give that filtered reading? Because to Chione's point before we were recording, so many people will give very filtered rose colored glasses type readings. And although that can be helpful and it does have a time and a place, just like my candy bar, but I don't think that's always helpful. I think like you both have said so much, that accountability is really important. So how do you approach those tough situations with your clients? Because it sounds like that's so important to you to be honest and not filter it.
Yeah. Well, if it comes through, I know that you can handle it, or we can work through it so that you do handle it. Because I've had spirit tell me, you have to be gentle on this one before, at the beginning of readings. They're very delicate. And so I get a heads up at the beginning of the reading where this is going to go and lead, and how my tone of voice needs to be, and how kind and loving I need to be to them. Or some people just want it straight up. They just tell me. I've had people tell me, I like that you're straightforward, and tell me how it is, and I'll match your energy. Whatever you need, spirit can help me to be that way for you.
Spoken like a true, authentic professional. I love that. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
I want you to tell us about this Kundalini activation. I have heard this story. This will be my third time, and I can't get enough of it. And you're probably like, how many times do I have to tell this to you, lady? But I think Chloe will be amazed.
Well, I'm supposed to write a book about it one day. I can see in about 10 years, I see when my son's grown up a little bit more, and I have the Airbnb out in the middle of the woods somewhere, and I could just sit there for a month and write a book. Where to begin? That's the question here. Okay, so I didn't ask for it. I didn't know what a Kundalini activation even was. I didn't even know. I knew what yoga was because I had taken it in college and I enjoyed it, but I didn't know really even how to meditate or anything before it happened. I had been doing the cards and I asked for more clarity, and I just wanted to know. And that started me on a journey. And I want to see where they want me to go with this. Started me on a journey in spirit, honestly, that I wasn't even aware of. And I just got led to the right books. I got led to the Nagamani Library, The Lost Years of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, different videos on YouTube and about those lost years and the different things that were happening, and different texts. So I read whatever I was led to. I went into a deep depression at the time. So I was in bed almost for a month or more while I'm doing all this research.
Was that related to your spiritual journey? Were you having like an existential type of crisis per se?
I mean, we're all girls here except for the guys that are going to be watching this later or listening to it later. I was having a relationship with a guy, and we were very intimate, and we were having some profound experiences in the bedroom, to the point where he's like, we're not just having sex back there. And it all starts in that root area. And now I know why, because of what I do in that area as well, with the channeling and the visions and the different things, and what it's actually meant for our sexual energy. But that's another podcast in and of itself. And so he left and moved to Philadelphia, and I'm in Lebanon area, and I just went deep into some depression and started researching. And then all of a sudden, and we'll get back to him in a minute, they're saying, I noticed that my reality was shifting. I could manifest. I was starting to be able to manifest my reality. And I realized that we were in a simulated reality and that we can decide. Like the one time I was in a parking lot at a grocery store, and I heard, this guy's going to take my cart back for me. And I just lived in the energy of, he's going to take my cart back for me. And then he came over and said, can I take that back for you? And so that was happening very rapidly, and to the point where I was getting messages on Facebook in regards to my activation and raising my consciousness and different things, that information that I didn't even have. But that's what happens when you start putting yourself on the path to greater wisdom. You start manifesting more of that greater wisdom to you, stuff that you didn't even know existed. So one day, I'm not sure why that was the day, but I had the activation, and it was an intense energy. It just hit me like up my spine and into the back of my head, into my brain. And it was very painful and very powerful. And then it went away. And then after that day, I could hear my guides. And things started manifesting even more rapidly. I just couldn't handle it. It was a lot. So it was very intense. And I had to work my way up from there, being able to handle this new reality that I was in, where I had to control my thoughts. And there's where meditation comes in. And if you don't, you're subject to all the scary stuff and thinking you're going crazy. And that's why they say meditate, meditate. Control your thoughts. It's very important for Kundalini activation. Wish I would have known that, but I didn't even know what it was.
I think that's the power, right, of the spontaneous awakening is you're just handed this thing and a gift, if you look at it that way, and you're figuring it out along the way, which some people are institutionalized. Some people are put in therapy. Some people are not believed. And some people say, I mean, look at Eckhart Tolle, sat on a park bench for months.
Yeah. And
And
I was institutionalized. I was, because they wanted me to mention something and I can't remember, but I'm sure it'll come back to me. It was very intense. I was tested. I was tested about my morals and my faith and who I was as a person and as a soul. I was made to repent, if you want to use that word. I know it's Christian, but I believe in it, for my wrongdoings, saying and behaving differently. I'm not allowed to do a lot of the same things I used to do. I can't go certain places. I know that they're not for me. And that's how I keep my vibe high. And that's how they can use me. So it was a whole testing situation of what's more important, because that's why we're here. It was like a rapid fast track to clearing my karma. Honestly.
I'm really grateful you shared that. I think that is so helpful, you sharing that story, because thinking about it through my reality, I remember a very distinct moment that I was sitting in my car. I could tell you exactly where I was at on the road, what tree it was I was looking at, and the river was right next to me. And I had what I thought was a weird headache migraine thing that I've never had before. And it was right at the base of my skull.
Yeah.
And then it almost felt like somebody snapped their fingers. And then I realized the pain was gone and I was crying happy tears. And I was like, I've never seen the trees look so sparkly and beautiful. And ever since then, instead of just knowing that's a 1967, whatever kind of car it is, now I hear the message being whispered into me. And then I'm like, oh, that's how I knew. And until you shared this moment, your story rather, I don't think I would have ever even been open to the idea that I potentially had an awakening in that caliber. So thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe you were, and you did. Yeah. At first I was like, everything's taken care of. Everything's so beautiful. I don't have to worry about anything. It was a euphoria like nothing I've ever felt before. And I keep trying to get back there to the euphoric state. Like everything's okay.
And that's why Eckhart Tolle sat on a park bench, just amazed at the world and how he could have missed from I want to say, a more human space, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're just so worried about and consumed by things that take up too much space in our consciousness. We'll put it that way.
Mm.
But then you had to come back to reality.
A
different lens, but still reality, right?
Yeah, it was trying to maneuver my life with my kids and this new wisdom and being able to hear my guides. And it was also a challenge for me. I was being tested because which way are you going to go? And so this isn't for everybody who gets awakened and has their Kundalini activation, but it was for me and my experience. They were testing me to see which area I wanted to embrace. Did I want to let the light in or the dark in? And sometimes that's our challenge. And nothing's wrong. They're just experiences. but I wanted to go full light because my daughter came in, and when I did a reading for her, she wanted to learn dark magic. And I found out through a reading for her that was her quest to work with me, her father, because I used to be dark in many lifetimes, And did I want to continue that pattern, or did I want to move into the more light sector, if you will, of reality and only let the universal forces of light use me? That was a quest. I had to make the decision, and that's why it was a little more difficult for me as well, because I did have that push-pull.
So when you felt that you were essentially in a soul quest of clearing karma, in general, how were you guided as far as places and things that would keep your vibration high?
So I was told not to go places or hang out with certain people, and I was told or shown the energy forces or the dark forces that were in those places and what they used our vessels for and the beings and therefore. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. This isn't the most peaceful planet. So it'd be great if it was all kitties and clouds and rainbows, but it's not. So we have to address the elephant in the room within us, every single one of us. So I was shown that bars, I couldn't even go in bars once my vibe was high enough. If I pass by certain bars, I'll pass out. I'll just fall to the floor. So I can't handle that dense energy anymore. So after a while of denouncing certain experiences that I just don't need or want anymore, human experiences, I got my vibe up so high that I just can't experience them anymore. And I'm okay with this. I would take this experience over that experience any day. So, I mean, and they used to use my vessel and come down in me. And when they would leave, because I channel, I would pass out too because their vibes are so high and mine's dense. And that's another reason why they wanted to raise my vibration so that I can channel for them. And they don't have to say things like, I don't like to come down here, like they did to the one person because my vibe was so low at that time. But now that I've raised it, I can channel really no problem. I used to pass out and I could feel them pull in and pull out. And now it's smoother. It's become what I needed to become. I needed to just denounce all that stuff. It's not worth it. Certain things I can't watch. Certain music I shouldn't listen to. I still do sometimes because I'm still even defiant at times, but I'm learning more and more the way it affects me.
And I loved how you said that there is no right or wrong, but there's a duality and a consequence. So I had read this one book, and it was an intelligence from an extraterrestrial group of intelligences speaking in this book. And this group of intelligence were from, I'm going to make this up, but I'm going to say like the 7th or 8th dimension, if we look at that from a consciousness standpoint. So their perspective was through the lens of unity and love. This group perspective was that the lower vibration was necessary for people to move through. But at the end of the day, we all end up back at unity and love. So some people take a more circuitous route getting there.
Yeah.
But what you said was very interesting. And you mentioned this about your mother. And this is exactly what this group of energy said in this book I was reading, was that essentially we have 2 types of energies on this earth or in our reality dimension. And one is based on self, which is good. You should serve yourself. But sometimes that means in sacrifice of others, right? And then the other energy is focused on the good of the whole. And there are ways to live in the good of the whole without sacrificing yourself.
Right.
And so the way I took that information and applied it to what you just said was that there are those who are very focused on self, be damned what happens to others. And I'm not saying your mother was that way. I'm just saying
She was. She was.
And we can look at that and say, okay, that's her life path, right? That's what she's learning through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to potentially take her longer to get there.
She'll have another lifetime to work on it, and another one. As many as she needs.
She's got some things to work through. Yeah. And so being self-centered or centered on self isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be if someone chooses to hurt others while they're centering on self. Yeah. But I think we see it in politics as an example where some folks are worried or focused on self and family, their own finances. And then you have other people who are focused on the whole and they understand that is a sacrifice, and both have a purpose. One not being necessarily right or wrong. So I love that your test was to say, if I'm interpreting this correctly, what do we need to do to get you from this perspective to this perspective? What do you personally feel you need to denounce to stay on a different vibration?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds hard.
It was a long journey.
And just feel some type of way, because though I may really have no desire to go to the bar at all, still feel some type of way knowing that I can't go there. I mean, I can because we have power of choice, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With that human realism, with this amazing duality to tie it in, do you struggle with that a little bit?
Certain things, yes. Music is one of them. I like to listen to the radio in the car because I get messages from my guides while I'm driving, but I can't stop on every station. I'm not allowed to listen to the 1057 The X at all. I can't even stop on that channel. Very low vibration. Not everything, but a lot of it. And the words have meaning and power. And when you're a master manifester like myself, if I'm focusing on chaos and destruction, which a lot of that stuff is and has in it, I'm creating more of that in my world. And so I can't watch the news or focus on everything that's happening in the world. I have to focus on peace and love and joy. Do I always know? Have I been watching what's going on in Minnesota? Sure. I'm not really supposed to.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. We don't really want to be watching that. Like, really, none of us want to be, right? Like, I know that. And I know that I shouldn't be. But the human side of me is like, but it's my responsibility too. I love that you brought it to something much more powerful than a bar, but that is exactly my point.
And I've watched enough, and I won't watch any of the shootings. I'm not allowed to watch any of the shootings. I can watch the protests to encourage more protests, but that's kind of like the monks do. They sit in peace and love, and then they walk in peace and love, and they focus on peace and love and understanding.
There are people who are thrilled with Minnesota.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So they're thrilled how that has come down. I see it. My algorithm on social has, very rarely do I see that, but I see it.
Violence begets violence.
Regardless
Hatred
of
begets
the reason.
hatred. And if you're going to sit and hate, either sides of the case. If you hate ICE or you hate immigrants, it's hate. It doesn't matter. You're still breeding more hate. And no.
And that is a challenge when you hate lawmakers and you hate our government, because it's a construct that I don't think needs to be fueled with hate either.
No, it's like the monks are doing. The only thing that's going to get us out of this is peace and understanding and love, compassion. Am I there yet? No, probably not. It still affects me in my life. and my friends and my morals and things of that nature. So it feels personal.
I can relate to that. I personally believe that to a degree, it is our responsibility to watch and participate in these events. But for me, participation looks like many boundaries and more manifestation than a physical supporting. Now, I'll still honk my horn and support every one of those protesters and send them all sorts of love and Reiki and everything I can. But yeah, there's a line there for me.
I just can't support that. Supporting protesters telling ICE agents to jump to their death off of roof buildings. I can't support that hatred for them.
Absolutely.
I don't hate them.
Or that yet anybody gets death threats because they're standing for what they believe in. Do I agree with what many believe in? No. But to your point, Harmony, we have free will. We make our own choices, and there's a consequence to everything that we choose to do. And
Yep.
I put my instant messenger post on Facebook. Personal profile says, listen with compassion just for today. And that means often listening to things we don't want to hear.
Yeah. You can't let evil win is what I heard while you were talking there. You can't let evil win. And when you become just as full of hate as maybe some of the ICE agents are towards immigrants, you become that which evil wants you, the dark wants you to become.
So how do you square that, Harmony, personally or as you're channeling from spirit with folks that say, but it was my job. I was tasked to do this. I mean, we heard this in the Holocaust, and I know that's a terrible example because...
But it is, yeah.
But there were people who feared for their jobs, feared for their families. They were in total poverty after World War I. U.S. didn't get involved. I mean, there's all kinds of problems with that situation from all different levels. So how do we square that with someone who says, but I'm only one person. I didn't have a choice. I was told to do this.
I heard you don't have to take that job. That's your choice. And that's noted in your book of life that you made that choice. And that's karma. And you have to clear it. By maybe next lifetime, you have to care for a group of immigrants. Like your life depends on it.
Or someone of a different religious faith.
Or you become an immigrant that's fleeing a country.
Balance, right?
I do personally believe we have the power of choice. I definitely agree. But I also know when I signed that 70 million page contract to join my military and serve for my country.
I thought you meant your Akashic records.
No,
That's
I don't remember that one, sadly.
I don't know if there's that many pages.
I was going to say, I think they're infinite, but that's just me.
Yeah, and I definitely was using a super dramatic number to make it a little lighter. But I had no idea what I was signing up for. It was so disillusioned, and we target the young, and we target the ones who have a struggled background. And so, although we do have a power of choice in this world, I think we need to remember even things like that with some compassion and honor the driving force that brought that individual to that level of trying to be a good supporter, a good community, all of the things, right? And just because the mask they're wearing now, maybe a fully clowned suit, the person underneath it is still a human trying to do their very best. And so, although I do hear we have power of a choice, I also think things like Stockholm syndrome is very real. And not everybody is fully cognizant of not only their own self, but the energetic vibrations that they're causing in such a major way.
Yeah. So for you personally, I heard, and for many, many, many that joined the military and different things, we weren't necessarily speaking of this. You and those like you will be noted in your book of life that you tried to do, you just wanted to do good. You didn't know what you were getting into. And I say that frequently about the military. Like, they don't know what they're getting into. They're so young, usually, or naive, and they don't know. And that's okay. I could have been somebody who was in the military, and my dad wanted me to. And I was like, calisthenics, not for me.
That's why I chose the Navy, because me either. I could swim it.
But, there's some leeway. Now, you can't put your gun down in the military. That's true. You have to follow orders, or there's ramifications for you. ICE, on the other hand, you don't have to sign up with your life or go to jail.
You, Chloe, went there to improve your life. You were in poverty. You had no skills. You went for opportunity. The military offers more than just, hey, let's mow people down. My entire family went to the military to escape poverty and to have opportunity. And they've been in every single branch. Now, most of them were in during peacetime, so they were super lucky, because I don't know, we don't have peacetime often for long stretches. I think give yourself a little grace there.
Thank you. I did just want to bring just an opposing perspective for people to think about.
I'm glad you did, because this has been weighing on you, so that's okay. And they want to say, even with the ICE agents, they take into consideration the fact that some of them were brainwashed as children to hate immigrants. And it's not their fault.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think Source, and you're the one that channels Harmony, so tell me if I'm crazy, but my feeling as to love and unity is that people make choices based on all the information they have at that moment. That information is accurate or not. And that's the point of learning and growing.
Yeah, I've learned, it's been scientifically researched, I guess, where people say up until the age of 6, it's like a record button. We learn what we see, what we hear, what our parents do, what our family does. So it's really in their hands, who we become, and the stuff we need to clear here about who we did become. Not all of it's past life accumulated. A lot of it's up until the age of about 6, and then it's play. And you hit play on what you learned, and then that's who you are, usually. That's why you become your mother or your father or your aunts and uncles, the different things people you see.
And then in my case, and so many others, we spend the last half of our life trying to undo those and rewrite them.
Yeah.
For a way that does serve me for my highest and greatest good and those around me.
And that's what I help people with. Almost always goes back to a pattern in childhood.
I love that.
Okay.
I just love that. I remember the first time I brought home, I was dating a person of color. And my parents were reticent about it. They don't hate, but they were reticent about it. And I remember one of them saying, are you sure you want to expose yourself to hatred, to whatever? And I said, are you saying I shouldn't be seeing someone because they're a person of color? Because you didn't raise me that way. So all of a sudden, you've changed the rule on me when I'm in my 20s. And I really like this person. But it did challenge not just how I thought I was being raised, but the implication that others' opinion of us would have on in that case, what my parents thought, my well-being.
Yeah. I heard that you did that to test them, and not consciously, but spiritually. Your higher self did that to
Good
test
job,
them,
Chione.
to see where they were. Yeah. So the universe wanted to test them through you and your choices. And that's why you liked them so much. One of the reasons. I'm not going to say that's the only reason, but that's one of the reasons. I'm sure there's much more. We're all tested every day.
I would love to know what has surprised you along the way, Harmony, on this spiritual journey.
That's a good question. And when I read it, I was pondering it. I believe what comes forward the most is how much everything circles back to childhood and your wounds and your father wounds or your mother wounds or whatever it is. How all of my relationships, almost all of my relationships, and others that I'm seeing in readings circle back to a period of time, mostly in childhood, where this happened or that happened. Take a friend of mine. She didn't get enough attention from her father once her second sister was born. She's the first. And then there's two more after her. And it stunted her growth, even though he was there for her and was loving. So you wouldn't think it's a father wound. But I saw her holding up artwork in a vision, like, hey, look at this. But he didn't have time anymore with a new baby. And she was 6. So she was old enough to comprehend, hey, daddy's not paying attention to me anymore. Not like he used to anyway. And now she seeks validation from men, even though she had a loving father. And she posts pictures to get the validation from men, just like I saw her holding the painting up in my vision as a little girl.
I was going to ask you what gratifies you with working with people, but you essentially pulled that veil back to say you come from a loving family, you know that. Things were going on, and now you need to love yourself and realize that no one gives you validation but you.
Yeah.
What does Spirit want everyone to know that we're missing or we're misinterpreting?
Well, I'll tell you what I just heard, that you're loved, we're all loved, and it's all working out, even when it doesn't appear to be. Even if it's a toxic relationship, there's always a message in there to help you heal. It's coordinated so specifically. Everything is. And
Yeah.
find a shaman. Come get a reading from me. I'll help you decipher the code of the universe. That's what I'm adding anyway.
Love that reminder, actually. Now that you say that, Chione and I do talk about this a lot, but my decade of experiencing a very toxic and violent relationship absolutely allowed me to really be who I am right now.
Yeah. I didn't realize all mine were my father, and they all helped me. So I'm grateful for them, even though I wasn't aware at the time. And I do want a healthy relationship one day. But without them, I would still have these tendencies within me. I would still have all of this negative energy, and I wouldn't be able to evolve and advance as a soul because I was stunted so much from my father. So he used to leave me sit and wait for him. So I would wait for men. And I needed to realize I can pick myself up and move on with my life. I don't need to wait for men anymore or someone anymore, even though that's what I was taught when I was little. So to clear all that, we need to witness it, because how else is the universe going to tell you, hey, this is what you're healing from, than to show you? I mean, to the point where my ex would sing the same song and hum the same song my dad did, and he didn't even know. It's so that if we look at that, that's the gift of how everything is, even though it doesn't look like it, it's all a progress of getting us to where we need to be. Because everybody's growth is different, and we're just at the beginning stages. Even though this is 2026, we're at the beginning stages of this growth, and advancement. We used to have a lot more wars than we did, a lot more pillaging, a lot more raping, a lot of more negative stuff than we do today. So if you take it into consideration of what it looked like in the medieval days when people were just hung up on stakes, it's a little different. We've come very far and we're fortunate. Are we where we need to be? No. But we'll get there. So it's all about the progress. And then you come home and you rest. And then you go back.
It sounds like you're saying people are a lot more capable, strong, and powerful than they realize.
Yeah, and I do want to bring in when they don't feel as strong. I've had multiple cases of when I didn't feel like I could make it, and friends that didn't feel like that they could make it. There's going to be some listening to this, and I don't want to say words, but if somebody's going like, what about those who have unalived themselves? We do have to take that into consideration, that there is a breaking point, that somebody might not be able to take this experience, and that's okay too. That's okay. That's not looked down upon. That's just, I need an exit point. And they're all programmed in. People who pass away that way don't go to a dark place like we think or might think they do. It's not a punishment. It's a, okay, next time you come back. From what I've heard, you get sung to by angels.
Sounds like that's a healing, a sound healing, essentially.
Yeah. And we help you to heal from this abuse, because usually that's where it stems from, parents or others. Maybe bullying in school, like I went through, and a lot of people do, that take you. And why would you be punished for those types of things?
When you think about, if we use bullying or workplace harassment or any of those situations where you have an antagonist and then someone it lands on, and then all these people around, at what point do we say this one person is responsible? Because everybody else is watching it and they're not saying anything. The person who it's landing on could really use some support in stepping up. Do they feel that they can't draw a boundary? What are the
Usually,
repercussions, right?
usually they have a lack of boundaries from childhood that bring these people in to them. And they feel like they can't. It's usually something in their aura that brings them in. That's
Right. So
why.
that's a hard thing. I was bullied too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. What was it about me that attracted some of that aggressive behavior, right? And what about people who saw it and didn't say anything? And then
Yeah.
what
And that's
about,
another lesson.
right? So there are lessons that go,
Layers.
yeah.
Lessons. Teachers who may not have seen it and not said anything, in my case, especially. Friends that said nothing or didn't console or tell a guidance counselor or a teacher. Peers, yeah, for it to fall through the cracks, like, oh, it's okay. But we see it. We see it in society. We see it in our movies. How many movies have we seen where somebody's picking on somebody else and it's okay? Or they're the cool kids. So when that changes, maybe bullying will stop when it's not glorified.
We started having those since I'm older than you guys. So in the 80s and 90s, we started having that Revenge of the Nerds. And,
Remember,
the kids that would typically be picked on, or the brains or the eggheads or whatever, there was a dynamic shift. I don't know if it stopped bullying. I doubt it, for whatever reason. I think bullies will find something to bully an individual about.
And like I said, they're usually bullied too, where they witness it at home as well, when they're taking it out on you.
There's this aggression that has to go somewhere because they're boiling inside.
But why you? So a lot of that comes from, for me personally, I can say that I wasn't loved very much. I wasn't treated with compassion or kind to, so it stems from there.
I think that's a good reminder of why and how easy it can be to be the bully in that moment, because that is your reality tunnel. So, for example, I didn't know people actually lived a life without being called an explicit every other word. I had no idea people lived without being called names. So, for my reality tunnel, that's exactly what came out of my mouth. And now, years later, decades later, in most cases, I am so horrified by that. But the truth is, I really was also bullied and picked on. And it was such a reality that I just thought that was normal. So
Yeah.
talking about it like this and looking at it from everybody's perspective is powerful, because oftentimes I don't necessarily believe the bully knows they're the bully. And I think therein lies the problem.
No, they don't. And sometimes, not to make light of it, but they're the victims in some ways as well. Their parents are probably, in most cases, a lot of cases, very hard on them. And there's nowhere for that energy to go. But elsewhere, how many times have you had a boss come in to you and rail on you because they were railed on?
Yep. And I see it's been the hardest thing for me. And I'm sure I get the vibe. I know for a fact for Chloe, it's the same. And I absolutely can't imagine it's not for you either, Harmony. When I hear cases of animal abuse or people desecrating the land because they have no awareness that animals or plants or vegetation, whatever you want to call it, are living sentient beings. And there's an other to them. So when I hear terrible cases of people putting cats in microwaves and these things that just make me want to lay down and die, actually, I put on my compassionate thinking hat for a moment, or listening hat, and say, what is it that these individuals didn't receive in their lives, that they had no regard for other sentient beings?
I can tell you a personal story, but I want to start off by saying they're saying, stop watching that stuff, turn away, because you are very sensitive and you're absorbing the energy. And then it's in your aura and you're attracting it as well. And we'll get more into that when we do a private session. But also my cousin, and I know he won't see this, my dad was raised by a truck driver. So my dad was a truck driver and his dad was a truck driver, and they were farmers. Tough people, not very kind, pretty cruel. And my cousin, who is my dad's sister's son, was raised being bullied hard and desensitized to human emotions, wasn't allowed to have them. And that's what breeds these kind of behaviors.
Yeah. And somehow, so many of us are able to see a different way of life. I'm in an eco-spiritual cohort, and one of the individuals who I give huge respect for, when we were talking in smaller groups as to what brought us there, mine was very much the shamanic path, getting in touch with my mom's and also my father's love of land and those things. And there was this one woman who said, I have no idea. You want to talk about spirit leading someone? I have no idea why I'm here. All my life, I threw trash out the window. I smoked and just threw stuff on the ground. I could have cared less about my impact on animals having to dig through my cigarette butts versus trying to find worms or whatever to eat.
Yeah.
And she said, but I'm here. And this is an investment. And this is a 2-year type of ministry-ish type program. This is a major investment. She's still there almost a year later. Amazing what can happen when we actually listen.
And sometimes it takes that investment to become the human we need to be, but we can also die being who we were. So it's just one choice away. Do I go this way or that way? So she got the opportunity and she took it, and it changed her.
Yep. And
But
now,
Spirit's always dropping opportunities in your path.
and she somehow something spoke to her. And it resonated through that one moment as she was getting ready to throw something on the ground, right? Crazy.
And that could be Spirit working through her as well, because as her vibration raises, we can stop your hand from doing stuff. We can make you think about it. Not that we can't always, but it's a little harder when you're so dense. That's why when you're a kid, a lot of kids will have these spiritual gifts and then they go away because their vibe drops. They're not as high vibrational anymore.
I remember saying to my son, when you're about to do something that I'm not going to be real happy about, and you know how you hear that voice in the back of your head, Mom's not going to like this. He said, yeah. And I said, why don't you listen to it? He's like, I really try not to pay any attention to it.
And then it'll go away.
And then it goes away. Yeah.
Because you're not listening anyway.
But it's the same thing, right? With Spirit, your sensitivity to it, unless something so profound like losing your hearing or something terrible.
Now, what they're telling me is that they'll always be there for you, but you just won't be able to hear because you'll be too dense. Not stupid dense, but vibrationally dense.
Certain things just can't get through.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's like blocking the wind if you need a fresh breeze, but you're sitting inside a closed window.
Yeah.
How can we tell people to reach you?
The best way to reach me is always messaging me on my socials, which is in my link tree. But I also check my emails, or you can text me.
Perfect. All of those messaging, contact information, as well as email information will be in the show notes. So anybody who is interested in connecting with Harmony Lovejoy, I encourage you to do it. There is nothing that you will walk away with if not inspiration and love. What do you have for us as we sign off? What message would you like to leave with the world?
What I'm hearing is love yourself, love others, be understanding to others' plights, that they are who they are because of where they came from. They're on their healing journey, just as we all are. So to be more understanding and loving to one another and our plights in life. And ask if you don't know, not in a condescending way, but ask, how are you? Where you came from? How was your journey? Tell me more. It's like I'm getting the vision of those libraries, those human libraries, where you really get to know someone.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love it.
It was wonderful having you. Thank you so much.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for diving into the depths with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, show your support at buymeacoffee.com/Mystical Mermaid Lounge, as every little ripple helps keep the magic flowing. Would you like some more deep, soul-yearning conversations? Well, then swim on over to our sister podcast, Past Lives Cafe, where Chione deep dives into those past life experiences. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate and review and drop your feedback and comments at our website, mysticalmermaidlounge.buzzsprout.com. Thank you again so much, and don't forget to catch us at the next high tide. Bye-bye.